to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I'm your host, Roddy John, and today we talk to the fashionista of pro wrestling, Calvin Couture. We talk all about fashion, obviously, gear, body dysmorphia, and so much more. This is such a great conversation we had with Calvin. Calvin is, again, these are one of those things where we are just getting the tip of the iceberg with him, but we're going to definitely get into so much more. But first, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out twice a week. You get even more information about our guest. You get fun facts, and you get to find out what's happening with your favorite podcast, all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So without further ado, here is Calvin Couture. I would like to welcome to the show the fashionista of pro wrestling, Calvin Couture. How are you doing today?
I'm well.
So, for those listening, kind of paint us a word picture. Where are you at? What's going on around you?
Yeah, of course. Do you mean right this second, or for those who might not know me right now?
Let's do a little bit of both.
Okay, perfect. Well, right this second, I am in my personal office. There are some photos around me of some of my greatest accomplishments in professional wrestling. Um, with some of my best t-shirt designs that I've had. So it's kind of a nice little homage to myself, which is more so just to remind myself of my accomplishments and how far I've come from where I've been in wrestling. But in wrestling, like you said, I am the fashionista of professional wrestling, Calvin Couture. Currently one half of the tag team, The Runway, with Mr. Design Tyler Klein. And we are based out of the Pittsburgh region, Pittsburgh area. So that's where I started. I've been wrestling for say about seven and a half, going on 8 years now. And I've definitely evolved over time. Let's just say that.
Well, I would hope so. Well, I mean, so kind of walk us through what who does your designs first off, and then I guess how many different t-shirt designs have you had over the last 8 years?
That's a good question. So I do a majority of the t-shirt designs,
Nice.
but whenever it comes to something specific or if I need help with something, I do have different designers here and there that I do work with. Um, and then one or two of my shirts actually have been work from other wrestlers or other fans that have done artwork for me. So I really, I don't try to, I try to get inspired
Right.
whenever I'm creating a t-shirt design. And I really like to look at different avenues. Like we actually do have a new one that's going to be coming out here shortly within the next month. It's a little different than one that we've had before. I know people say that they don't really like black t-shirts all the time whenever it comes to wrestling shirts, but um, honestly, for us, those are the ones that normally people to gravitate towards. I think people
Yeah.
still like the black look, even though sometimes the same people that say they want something else, but then whenever you come out with something else, they don't want it.
Right. Yeah.
um, but yeah, so we have another one coming up here shortly. Um, but yeah, so whenever it comes to more so like designs for gear, Tyler actually does a really good job at coming up with a lot of the designs. We collaborate on what we both kind of want, and then he kind of does the best of designing it. So, we both pull inspiration from different areas, and that's what you see in our looks.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, when it came, I mean, you're, like you said, you're 7 years in the business now. When, I mean, I always see the wrestlers, especially like we talked about, evolving, that they change either the way, their gear, or obviously you should have different gear on a regular basis, but sometimes it's either the short ones or the quarter length or sometimes full
Hmm.
length. Have you kind of figured out which, whether it be the singlet or the tidy whities, what's the best either look for you or best feel? Because obviously moving around has a huge aspect when it comes to how you are presenting yourself when it comes to your gear as well.
Oh yeah, of course. Whenever I first started, I was mainly a trunk kind of guy. Like
Hmm.
it was just the Speedo wear. That's what I wore. And um, I was more subtle on my designs
Mm.
whenever I started for about the first, I'd say the first, oh gosh, probably 2 years. It was very. I wanted the idea that I had in my head and how I wanted to present my style was I wanted to be more basic in my gear to make it look a little more timeless,
Right.
and dress it up with my jackets, my entrance wear, things along those lines. And then I did dabble a little bit more into some more color and some more designs, especially when I started teaming with Tyler, to be a little more loud. Not, and he kind of helped me not be a little more like he helped me be a little more open to really throwing it out there when it comes to more abstract design.
Mm.
I think a lot of it too was I felt like whenever I started, a lot of people were doing similar schemes, and it was kind of at a point where you kind of chose a color, and I really liked gold, so I did a lot went with gold. And then over time, I realized like if I'm really going to want to stand out and look a little different, I'm going to have to do a little bit of everything and make it work for what I have now. Of course, lately I have been wearing a singlet when I wrestle.
Right.
Now, that's something that kind of came about because I had a little blemish that I wanted to cover up, and then I just kind of got so used to wearing it. Because if I'm being honest, it really helped me. It helped me feel like I have more support
Makes sense.
whenever I was moving around in the ring, and so I just do a basic black singlet, underneath my gear, and it really makes me feel. I don't know. I told myself when I started I would never be someone that would wear a singlet or wear a t-shirt or anything like that to wrestle, but it for me, I mean, will I get to just wearing a, not wearing the singlet sometime? Probably sometime soon, but I think it just I just like how it looks on my body and I like how it feels when I wear it. So it's just one of those things that it's a different cut of a singlet, but it's just one of those things where I really feel like it just gives me a different vibe, I guess you could say.
No, that makes sense. I always find it funny because, like, Dax from FTR, they were trunks, but they're big Bret Hart guys. And I know they've had issues with, body dysmorphia over the years. And I've always thought, I bet they wonder or they look back and like, why didn't we just do what Bret did and wear a singlet the entire time, singlet and long trunks?
Oh yeah, body like so that's kind of interesting that you say that because I think body dysmorphia is really crazy in our industry.
Yeah, it goes both ways too. It's not just people think of the fat or they're too skinny, but like the big muscular guys think that some of them think they're very small, and it's like, no, you
Yeah,
can't fit through most door frames. I don't. There's no way that you're a small person.
yeah, it's bad. I think a lot of people are so insecure. I know I've dealt with it. And I'm not. Whenever I started, I was small. I
Right.
was 150 pounds, soaking wet. And I've gotten to a point where I'm always a work in progress. I always feel like I'm
Of
a work in
course.
progress, which I mean we all are, right? It
Right.
doesn't matter if it's our bodies, our minds, whatever it is. But for me, it's definitely been something that I've dealt with. Like even whenever I was 150 pounds soaking wet, I thought I was fat. I thought I didn't
Right.
have a good body. I thought, I'm never going to get big. So I want to watch what I eat because if I can't get big, then I need to look fit. And I look back at some pictures from whenever I was like that, and I'm like, holy crap, I look, I look awful. And it wasn't that I did anything unhealthy to be that way. I just my diet was different. My workouts were extremely cardio heavy at the time. But I don't feel like I looked how I wanted to look. And I still don't feel like I look how I wanted to look, which is kind of part of the body dysmorphia. But I think as wrestlers, we point out what we think is wrong with us, even though if
Right.
others don't see it, or we look at ourselves and we're like, oh my god, I can't believe I look like that. This gear's way too tight. Why am I wearing this? Like it's I look like the Pillsbury Doughboy. What the hell am I doing? And I think in an industry where you need to look a certain way, it's hard. It can be very hard. But there's also a double-edged sword to that. Is that could be what keeps you going at the same time. So
True.
it's it's so hard. It's something that I think as a society in general. I mean, it seems like it's getting a little better with being more confident in who you are and
Mhm.
just trying to be the best version of yourself, however that looks. Um, but yeah, it's interesting that you say that because that really is something that I think a lot of people deal with, and not many people want to talk about or like talking about. Um, but yeah, I think it just as long as for me, I always try to tell myself, you might not be happy where you are, but you're pushing towards where you want to be.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, like you kind of mentioned, no matter where you are in life, you can kind of say that to yourself, and hopefully that will help you get through the next day or the next hour or however long it takes you.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. And it is so funny to me that we get so many wrestling fans who, the stereotypical wrestling fan is not anywhere close to where they need to be if they were going to try to be a ring shape. And they pick apart, the men, the women, everything in between. It's like, what? When was the last time you actually went inside a gym? Do you know what a gym smells like? Do you know what iron
Mhm.
or like muscles like feel like? Like, I don't know what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I think there's definitely times where fans overstep their boundaries
Hmm.
and what they think they can say and do. But as performers, it tests our ability to like. My favorite thing to do whenever I'm out there and I hear something negative is just give it right back. Because look,
Yeah.
if you think you can say whatever you want and buy these tickets and do that, well, then guess what? Like we can say whatever we want back.
Yeah.
And I always love when the people are offended. It's like, well, you said that to me. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no keyboard in the way. Like this is face to face. Like I'm paid to be here. You paid to be here. So I can do whatever I want right now too.
100%.
Yeah. Well, let's go all the way back in time. What is your earliest memory of pro wrestling?
Yeah. So, my earliest, the main memory from what I remember the early stages of Monday Night Raw,
Hmm.
and I know there was some stuff before that, with like Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, probably around like 1992 ish, but the memories that stick out to me the most are the beginnings of Monday Night Raw, particularly I would say from King of the Ring, so that was what, maybe about like June till about SummerSlam,
Hmm.
August. And the reason why I say that is my dad actually recorded a VHS tape of however many Monday Night Raws those were. And as a kid, that's what I would do. I would watch those tapes over and over. And it was really cool too because he did it where there were no commercials. So he would try to stop it,
Oh,
record it,
nice.
and do yeah. So that's really what I remember as my earliest memories from my childhood. I know there was some stuff before that, but that's really what sticks with me is that kind of that piece of time. Um, so you can say 1993 is definitely a year in wrestling, specifically WWF, that I kind of gear towards and gravitate to just because that some of my earliest memories. And I know people, 1993 wasn't that great of a year in WWF, but it's what I remember. It's some of the characters that really drew me in. Like, whenever I was a child, I wasn't really into comic books or
Oh,
superheroes. I was the wrestling was my comic book. Wrestling was my my version of that superhero